That thing you just ate this morning, it's already moving through your bloodstream right now, and your kidneys are struggling to keep up. But you feel nothing, no pain, no warning, just silent damage building in real time while you go about your day thinking everything is fine. And the worst part? It's not something rare or toxic. It's something you trust, something sitting in your kitchen. And by the time you realize what it's doing, it might already be too late. If you're serious about taking better care of your health, make sure you subscribe. I share simple, practical advice designed especially for seniors. And feel free to leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. I always read them and appreciate every one of you. Let's get back to it. Picture a normal morning. You wake up, move to the kitchen, and do what you always do. Maybe you put the kettle on. Pour a glass of juice. Drop 2 slices of bread into the toaster. Reach for the cereal. Everything feels routine. Everything feels right. And why wouldn't it? You're not eating poison. You're not doing anything reckless. You're just living the same way you lived yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. But here's what I need you to understand before this video goes any further. Right now, inside that ordinary morning, something could be quietly working against one of the most important systems keeping you alive. And you wouldn't feel it. Not a twinge, not a signal, not a single warning your body would know how to send you. That's what makes this so unsettling. My name is Dr. James Cross, and over the years, I've stopped being surprised by what doesn't hurt people immediately, because I've learned that the slow things, the quiet things, are the ones that do the real damage. I've sat across from patients who were completely blindsided, people who weren't reckless, people who exercised, watched what they ate, and felt, by every measure they trusted, completely fine. And then one routine blood panel changed everything. The results came back. And the question on their faces was always the same. But how? I didn't feel anything. That's the thing about kidney disease. It doesn't come with a warning shot. According to the National Kidney Foundation, nearly 9 out of 10 people living with early-stage kidney disease have no idea they have it. 9 out of 10. That's not a rare exception. That's the standard. That is how this condition operates. In silence, in the background, underneath a life that, from the outside, looks perfectly healthy. And the reason isn't bad luck. The reason is that what causes kidney damage rarely looks like a cause. It looks like a habit. It looks like a convenience. It looks like something you've been reaching for your entire adult life without a second thought, because no one ever told you what it was actually doing on the inside. That is what this video is about. Not a simple list of foods to avoid, not generic advice you've already heard. I want to show you how the damage enters your life, disguised as normalcy, wrapped in routine, hiding in plain sight. And by the time we reach the end, I'm going to name the single item I consider the most destructive kitchen poison, quietly at work in the bodies of adults today. Not the most obvious one, not the one you're already suspicious of, the one you trust. Because that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Most people never think about their kidneys. Not because they don't care about their health, but because their kidneys have never given them a reason to. No pain, no noise, no interruption, just quiet, relentless work happening deep in your body while you go about your day completely unaware. And that invisibility, that's not a comfort, that's the danger. Here's what your kidneys are actually doing right now. Every single minute, they're filtering your blood, pulling out waste, balancing minerals, regulating fluid, controlling your blood pressure. They process roughly 200 liters of blood every single day. Not occasionally, not when they feel like it. Every day, without stopping, without asking you for anything in return. Think about that for a moment. 2 fist-sized organs, working harder than almost anything else in your body. And most people couldn't tell you the last time they gave them a single thought. Now, here's where it gets important. Unlike your heart, which races when something is wrong, unlike your lungs, which tighten and tell you to pay attention, your kidneys don't have that kind of alarm system. When they're under stress, they don't send pain signals. They don't slow you down. They just quietly begin to lose capacity, little by little, in increments so small your body doesn't register them as a crisis. Doctors measure kidney function using something called glomerular filtration rate, GFR. It's essentially a score that tells you how efficiently your kidneys are cleaning your blood. And here's what the research shows. GFR naturally declines with age, but in people exposed to certain dietary and lifestyle patterns, that decline accelerates dramatically, years ahead of schedule, far beyond what aging alone should cause. But you won't feel that acceleration. You'll feel fine. You'll feel normal. You'll feel exactly the way you felt this morning, standing in your kitchen, doing what you always do. That's what I mean when I say kidney disease is patient. It doesn't rush. It doesn't announce itself. It builds, layer by layer, insult by insult, until the day your body simply can't compensate anymore. And by the time symptoms finally appear, the swelling, the fatigue, the changes in how you feel, the damage is often already advanced. This is not a rare scenario. This is the standard trajectory for millions of people right now. And the cruelest part of it isn't the disease itself. It's the window, the long, wide-open window, where intervention was still possible, where one or two changes made consistently could have shifted the entire outcome. That window doesn't stay open forever. The real danger isn't what you feel, it's what you don't. And what you don't feel starts long before the diagnosis. It starts in habits, in routines, in choices that don't look like choices at all. Which brings us to the first one. When most people think about kidney damage, they think about food, and that makes sense. We've been conditioned to frame health problems in terms of what's on our plate. Too much salt, too much fat, too much of the wrong thing. So naturally, when someone mentions kidney health, your mind goes straight to the kitchen and starts scanning for the obvious offenders. But here's the first thing I need to challenge. Sometimes the problem isn't what you're putting into your body. Sometimes it's what you're not giving it. Let's talk about water, not in the vague, generic way you've heard 100 times. Drink 8 glasses a day, but in a way that actually explains what's happening inside you when you don't. Your kidneys are filtration organs. They depend on a steady, consistent flow of fluid to do their job properly. When you're well hydrated, blood moves through the kidneys smoothly. Waste gets pulled out efficiently, and everything downstream works the way it should. Clean, flowing, functional. But here's what chronic dehydration looks like in practice. It doesn't look like collapsing from thirst. It doesn't feel dramatic. It's the person who starts their morning with coffee instead of water, who reaches for a sweetened drink at lunch, who goes hours through a busy afternoon without a single glass, who mistakes mild thirst for hunger, or ignores it entirely because life is moving fast and hydration feels like a low-priority problem. That is most people, possibly including you. And in that state, that low-grade, persistent, barely noticeable dehydration, your blood becomes more concentrated, thicker, harder to filter. Your kidneys, which were designed to work with flowing clean fluid, are now being asked to process something closer to sludge. Imagine a water filtration system designed for a steady, clean stream, and then forcing it to push through a slow, thick river instead. It still works. It doesn't stop. But the strain is constant, and strain, applied consistently over months and years, degrades even the most resilient systems. Research published through the National Institutes of Health has linked chronically low fluid intake to faster decline in kidney function over time, independent of other risk factors, meaning even if everything else about your lifestyle was reasonable, insufficient hydration alone was enough to accelerate damage. And yet nobody talks about this with the urgency it deserves. Because dehydration doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like a minor inconvenience at worst, something you'll get around to fixing later. A glass of water before bed. Maybe an extra one tomorrow, but later is how silent damage compounds. Every day your kidneys spend working under that unnecessary strain is a day they don't get back. The filtration capacity lost to years of mild dehydration doesn't simply return when you finally drink enough water. Some of that decline is permanent. The good news, and there is good news here, is that this is one of the most correctable risk factors on this entire list. Water costs almost nothing. It requires no prescription, no specialist referral, no complicated protocol. It just requires you to take it seriously. But I want to be honest with you. As important as hydration is, it is not the biggest problem on this list, not even close. There are threats ahead of us that are quieter, more trusted, and far more embedded in your daily life than a missing glass of water. And the next one is something most people would never think to question. There's a particular kind of danger that only exists inside things you trust, not the danger you can see coming, not the risk you weigh before making a decision, the danger that never gets questioned, because the thing carrying it has already passed every test your instincts know how to run. It feels safe, it's familiar, it works, and that's exactly the problem. I'm talking about pain relief medication, specifically the kind sitting in your bathroom cabinet right now, the kind you reach for without thinking when a headache won't quit, when your knees ache after a long day, when your back tightens up and you just need to get through the afternoon. Over the counter, widely available, recommended by pharmacists, taken by millions, and treated by most people as barely even a medication at all. Just something you take, like a reflex. Here's what that reflex is costing some of you. A class of medications known as NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which includes common names like ibuprofen and naproxen, works by reducing inflammation throughout the body. That's what makes them effective. But the mechanism behind that effect also does something else. It causes the blood vessels supplying your kidneys to constrict, less blood flow, less oxygen delivery, less filtration capacity. Once or twice, for a short duration, your kidneys handle that. They're resilient, they compensate. You take the pill, you feel better, and nothing catastrophic happens. But that's not how most people use them. Most people use them the way they used them last week, and the week before, because the back pain didn't go away, because the headaches kept coming back, because somewhere along the line, reaching for that pill became as automatic as making morning coffee, a small, harmless feeling part of the daily routine. And it's in that repetition where the damage quietly accumulates. Research published in the American Journal of Kidney Diseases found that regular, long-term use of NSAIDs is associated with a significantly increased risk of chronic kidney disease, particularly in adults over 50, who may already have some degree of reduced kidney function they're unaware of. The pill isn't the villain in one dramatic moment. It's the habit, the frequency, the years of low-level unnoticed strain that never registered as a warning because nothing ever hurt. That's the trust trap. The things we rely on most are the things we scrutinize least. And when those things carry a cost, a slow, silent, compounding cost, we never see the bill coming, not until it arrives. But even this, the dehydration, the medication dependency, these are not the core of what I need to show you today. They are symptoms of a deeper pattern, a central driver that connects everything we've covered so far, and goes far beyond it. We're getting close to it now. We need to talk about what unhealthy food actually looks like. Because if I asked you to picture it right now, you'd probably conjure something obvious. Fast food under harsh lighting, a greasy paper bag, something you know is bad, something that already comes with a sense of guilt built in before you've even opened the wrapper. That mental image is exactly what the food industry is counting on. Because while your attention is fixed on the obvious offenders, an entirely different category of food is moving through your life completely unchallenged. No guilt, no second glance, no internal alarm going off at all. It's in your pantry right now. It's probably what you had for a snack today. And it is doing something to your kidneys that most people will never connect to what's sitting on their kitchen shelf. I'm talking about ultra-processed foods, not the dramatic junk food you already know to limit, but the products engineered to seem completely reasonable, the packaged crackers with a whole grain label on the front, the flavored drinks marketed as low sugar, the instant soups, the store-bought sauces, the convenient snacks that come in a resealable bag and have an ingredient list so long you stopped reading it years ago. These products share something in common that isn't printed anywhere on the label. They are loaded with hidden sodium, not the sodium you consciously add at the dinner table. The sodium that was built into the product during manufacturing, used as a preservative, a flavor enhancer, a texture stabilizer. Sodium that accumulates quietly in your diet across breakfast, lunch, dinner, and every snack in between, without ever triggering the mental alarm of, I'm eating too much salt. Here's why that matters for your kidneys specifically. The World Health Organization has repeatedly identified excess sodium intake as a direct contributor to hypertension, high blood pressure, and hypertension is one of the 2 leading causes of kidney failure worldwide, second only to diabetes. Every time your blood pressure climbs and stays elevated, it forces your kidneys to work against increased resistance. The tiny, delicate blood vessels inside them, the ones responsible for filtration, begin to sustain damage, slowly, invisibly, consistently. Think of it like this. Imagine a piece of music playing softly in the background, so softly you barely register it's there. Now, imagine that music playing every hour of every day for 10 years. You stopped hearing it long ago, but the sound never stopped, and the cumulative effect on your hearing is real, measurable, and by the time you notice it, already done. That is what chronic low-level sodium exposure does to your kidneys. The danger is never in a single meal. It's in the frequency, the daily, unnoticed accumulation that never feels like a crisis because it never arrives as one dramatic event. It arrives as a trend, a slow drift, a filtration system that is slightly less capable this year than it was last year, and slightly less capable next year than it is today. And here's the thing that should concern you most. All three of what we've covered, the dehydration, the medication habit, and now this, are not random, isolated problems. They are threads of the same pattern, connected by something deeper, something more central, something sitting in your kitchen that ties all of this together in ways that should genuinely alarm you. We're almost there. Let's stop for a moment. Because before we get to the reveal, before I name the single most destructive force on this entire list, I want you to see something that most health videos never take the time to show you. A pattern. Look at what we've covered so far. Chronic dehydration, a habit so normalized it doesn't feel like a problem. Medication dependency, a reflex so trusted it never gets questioned. Ultra-processed foods, a diet so engineered to seem ordinary that the damage it carries moves completely under the radar. 3 different threats, 3 different entry points into your daily life. But here's what I need you to notice. None of them announce themselves. None of them hurt in the moment. None of them feel like the kind of decision that carries consequences. They all share the same disguise, normalcy. They blend into routine so completely that by the time the damage becomes visible, the habit responsible for it has been running for years. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern, and patterns have a source. Think about what drives chronic dehydration in the modern diet. It isn't simply forgetting to drink water. It's that something else has taken water's place. Something sweet, something convenient, something that satisfies in the short term while quietly depriving your body of what it actually needs. Think about what makes pain medication dependency so easy to fall into. It isn't weakness, it's that the underlying inflammation driving that daily pain is never properly addressed because its root cause is still sitting in the diet, untouched, feeding the cycle. Think about what ultra-processed foods are primarily engineered around. Strip away the sodium, the preservatives, the additives, and what you find at the core of almost every product in that category is the same ingredient, dressed up in different forms, under different names, in different packaging. One central driver, one biological trigger that connects dehydration, inflammation, medication reliance, blood pressure dysregulation, and metabolic dysfunction into a single, coherent chain of damage. And the reason it has gone unaddressed for so long, the reason it sits in your kitchen right now without a warning label, is that it doesn't feel dangerous. It feels good. It was designed to. That's what makes it the most effective silent threat on this entire list. Not because it's the most toxic substance in isolation, but because it is the most deeply embedded, the most normalized, the most defended by habit, by craving, by decades of routine that have made it feel not just acceptable, but essential. You've been consuming it your entire life. So, has almost everyone you know, and tomorrow morning, without this information, you would have reached for it again without thinking twice. We're about to change that. It's sugar. Not the sugar you think about. Not the obvious spoonful you stir into your coffee, or the dessert you allow yourself on a Friday evening. Those aren't the problem, because you see them. You account for them. You make a conscious choice and move on. The problem is the sugar you never agreed to consume, the sugar hiding in your breakfast cereal, your store-bought bread, your flavored yogurt, your heart-healthy granola bar, your bottled salad dressing, your pasta sauce, added sugar and refined carbohydrates, engineered into the fabric of everyday eating so thoroughly that avoiding them requires active, deliberate effort, most people don't know they need to make. This is what I consider the worst poison in your kitchen. And here's exactly why. When you consume high amounts of added sugar and refined carbohydrates repeatedly, not occasionally, but as a daily pattern, your blood glucose spikes. Your pancreas responds with insulin. Over time, with enough repetition, your cells begin to resist that insulin signal. The glucose stays elevated longer, the pancreas works harder, and eventually, that chronic metabolic stress tips into something irreversible. Type 2 diabetes. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, diabetes is the single leading cause of kidney failure worldwide. Not one of the leading causes, the leading cause. And the pathway from daily sugar consumption to diabetic kidney disease is not theoretical. It is one of the most well-documented progressions in modern medicine, but it doesn't stop at diabetes. This is what separates added sugar from every other threat we've discussed today. It doesn't work through one pathway. It works through several, simultaneously. It damages the tiny blood vessels inside your kidneys, the ones responsible for filtration, reducing their efficiency quietly over years. It drives blood pressure upward, compounding the strain we discussed with sodium and processed foods. It promotes chronic systemic inflammation, weakening kidney tissue at the cellular level. It contributes to weight gain and metabolic dysfunction that creates a body-wide environment hostile to kidney health. It doesn't knock on the door. It rewires the house from the inside. A study published in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that diets consistently high in added sugars were independently associated with markers of kidney damage, even in people who had not yet developed diabetes. Meaning, the damage begins before the diagnosis, before the label, before anyone tells you there's a problem. And the most unsettling part of all of this, it feels like breakfast. It feels like a snack. It feels like comfort. It feels like every ordinary Tuesday morning you've ever lived. Routine, harmless, familiar. That is the poison, not the taste, not the ingredient in isolation, the disguise. But here's where I need you to stay with me, because this story does not end in damage. It ends in control. Here's what I want you to hold on to. Everything we've covered today, the dehydration, the medication habit, the processed foods, the hidden sugar, none of it was designed to leave you feeling helpless. It was designed to leave you feeling informed. And those are two very different things. Because here's the truth that gets buried under all the fear-based health content flooding your screen every day. Kidney damage driven by lifestyle is largely preventable, not partially, not in rare cases. The research is consistent. The habits that silently degrade kidney function over decades are, in most cases, habits that can be interrupted, slowed, reversed in the early stages, and significantly protected against when the right changes are made consistently enough. You are not powerless here. You never were. So, let's talk about what actually moves the needle. Start with water. Not a dramatic overhaul, just a genuine daily commitment to replacing one sugary or caffeinated drink with water. That single substitution, repeated consistently, reduces the filtration strain on your kidneys more than most people realize. Your kidneys were designed for clean, flowing fluid. Give them what they were built for. Next, get honest about your relationship with over-the-counter pain medication. Occasional use is not the enemy. Habitual, unexamined use, reaching for it reflexively without addressing the underlying inflammation driving the pain, that is what compounds over time. Speak with your doctor about alternatives. Address the root, not just the symptom. Then start reading labels, not obsessively, but intelligently. Sodium and added sugar hide under dozens of different names on ingredient lists. High fructose corn syrup, dextrose, maltose, disodium phosphate. You don't need a chemistry degree to spot a pattern. You just need to look, because the moment you start looking, the invisible becomes visible, and visible threats lose most of their power. Replace refined carbohydrates with whole food alternatives where you can. Brown rice instead of white. Whole grain instead of processed. Vegetables and legumes instead of packaged convenience foods. These aren't radical changes. They are small, sustainable redirections that, made consistently, create compounding protection over months and years. Stay active. Move your body in ways that support healthy blood pressure and metabolic function. Even moderate, regular movement measurably reduces the systemic strain that accelerates kidney decline. None of this is extreme. None of this requires perfection. It requires awareness, consistent, honest, daily awareness, applied to decisions you were already making anyway, just without the information you now have. Your kidneys have been working for you every single day of your life, silently, consistently, without complaint, filtering hundreds of liters of blood while you slept, while you worked, while you lived. They have never asked you for anything. The only question that matters after everything you've heard today, is whether you're finally ready to start working for them. Thanks for watching all the way through. Staying informed is key to living a healthier, longer life. If you want more simple, practical health advice, make sure you subscribe and tap the next video on your screen. And before you go, leave a comment and rate this from 1 to 10. Your feedback helps me create better guidance for you.